Welcome into the Awesemo MMA strategy show for UFC Vegas number 32, which goes down on Saturday night inside the Apex there in Las Vegas. We got an early start time there on Saturday afternoon. Prelims start 4 p.m. Eastern time. Main card 7 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. We're going to break down all of these fights, and I promise, end of the show, we'll give our picks this time. I know last Thursday we didn't give our picks. We'll definitely give our picks this week. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, how you doing here on this Thursday afternoon? It's a nice and very shiny as I look outside the office here in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, what's going on? We've been kind of dodging some rain like for the past couple of weeks, and it's all right. Got a busy work week ahead, and then we have some awesome fights on Saturday, so I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to these fights on Saturdays, just like yourself here. Of course, we've got the return of TJ Dillashaw, which I really want to know. Without someone going to Google, do you know what TJ stands for? And if you were in Pete's Twitch stream last night, you know the answer to the question.
That's right. I mean, it took me by surprise the first time I found out. I forgot how I found out about that, but it's you wouldn't know. TJ, is probably definitely the preferred name to go by.
Yeah, most definitely here. But of course, returning 2.5 years away from the sport due to that failed drug test that he had pre and post fight for his matchup there against Henry Cejudo. And one of the things that I've really noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this over the past couple of days, when we're talking about drug suspensions, the way people view his drug suspension is totally different than anybody else. I mean, he's never going to, that cheater tag is always going to be there. He's never going to get away from it. By the way, Maddie getting it right there. It is Tyler Jeffrey Dillashaw. That is what TJ stands for here. But man, it's a tough opponent here in Corey Sandhagen. There's a reason Corey Sandhagen is a favorite in this one. When you look at the difference in Corey Sandhagen since that Aljamain Sterling fight to what he's rolled off here in his past couple fights, man, this is a tough matchup for Dillashaw to come back from 2.5 years. And I said this yesterday on my show, Pete. I don't know what to expect from TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, he's definitely bringing a surprise factor, right? Because we don't know how tainted his legacy is because of the USADA suspension. Like, we don't know how many of his fights he was possibly dodging and kind of, weaving in and out of these drug tests. He tries to claim that EPO really did nothing for him, but that there's a reason why you were taking it. And it was definitely to feel better at that weight class, but also to perform at a higher level. So EPO being such an endurance enhancer is a very scary thing, because we always talk about how the scariest thing in the world is running out of gas in the octagon and not being able to defend yourself or do what you're capable of. With an unlimited gas tank, there's really not too much to worry about. So, I mean, I'm interested to see how he returns. Obviously, he's going to have to step in there and not miss a beat, because going up against Sandhagen, who's been on fire and has been in rhythm of late, it's going to be a very, very difficult thing, despite them, training together previously.
I think the question I have with TJ Dillashaw is more of this, like, okay, so we saw how it went there against Henry Cejudo. Did not go well for him at all. To me, it's more of sitting back and saying, okay, what is TJ Dillashaw's path to victory? Now, if you want to take the Aljamain Sterling route, okay. I just don't think he goes that route. I think that he's going to sit there and have a striking matchup in this one. I don't think this thing's going 25 minutes, Pete. I mean, look, I think if you're a multiple lineup entry player, you got to have both sides of this fight. But if I'm a single entry player, to me, I think it's take Corey Sandhagen if you can fit him in your lineup.
Yeah. So for me, TJ Dillashaw early on in his, in Sandhagen's career, he spoke about Sandhagen saying how he's a great training partner of his, and, how Sandhagen will get the best of him in training. But, that's training. And now this is under the bright lights, and it's just going to be a lot to overcome. But TJ Dillashaw is championship caliber. He has all the skills to back it up. Good striking, sneaky wrestling. And I think the wrestling is something that he could look to resort to in a matchup against such a dangerous striker in Corey Sandhagen. Now, I don't really know if he has the submission chops that a guy like Aljamain Sterling did in that matchup, where he was able to really capitalize on a very advantageous position against Sandhagen. But I do think that if TJ Dillashaw is able to mix in some takedowns to possibly solidify some rounds, wear down, say, Sandhagen, we could be talking about a much closer fight, because on the feet, I do prefer the movement and the speed and combinations of Sandhagen. And to look back and think of what Dillashaw did to Renan Barão, it's just amazing the skill set that I hold Sandhagen to. Like, I really admire what Sandhagen is, but let's also not forget how talented TJ Dillashaw is. But it's a must-have for me in the lineups. 5-round fight. I think it's going to go at least 2. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I do think that the longer it goes, possibly TJ is able to get back into the fight with his wrestling. But I'm excited for the fight. I'm picking Corey Sandhagen in the matchup, and I think that he could end up going out there and knocking out Dillashaw.
Yeah, that's why I think the prop bet of Sandhagen win by TKO KO at plus 120 is one of those prop bets I think you got to pay attention to. But look, you got to look at the TJ Dillashaw thing, side of this equation too. He definitely could get the job done. Now, one of the best ways for how you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum is to review your favorite podcast, a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Hopefully it's this show, the Strategy Show, which of course you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, download the show and leave a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username. You'll be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One lucky winner is awarded every Friday. Your reviews are eligible for up to 1 year. It's as simple, it's easy, doesn't take any time at all, and it's most likely your best chance at winning a free month of Awesemo Plus, which is valued at about $90. Head over right now, awesemo.com/podcast. Be sure to give the Awesemo MMA podcast a 5-star review. We really do appreciate that. Let's move over to the co-main event. We got Aspen Ladd taking on Macy Chiasson. And look, Pete, I think this is kind of that old school MMA matchup, striker versus grappler. The one thing that you have to note on the Macy Chiasson side of the equation, 6-inch reach advantage in this one. She is a striker. Aspen Ladd, first fight since December 2019, coming off that knee injury. So obviously the question of how does she bounce back after that knee injury? But to me, it is very clear. If Aspen Ladd's winning this fight, it's her taking the fight to the ground and just pounding on Macy Chiasson on the ground. And if Macy Chiasson's going to win, to me, this thing is staying on the feet. I think in terms of DFS, Aspen Ladd, to me, because of the takedowns, is someone you have to look at. But I do think there's good chance this goes 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm interested in this fight for sure. And I understand why a lot of people will be looking at Macy Chiasson. I like at 7,300. I do like her. I like the volume. I like the length. And I do like her skill set on the feet. But obviously the X factor is Aspen Ladd being able to, dictate where the fight, takes place. And if she can change levels and put, Chiasson on the mat, I think it's going to be a much different fight. So it all comes down to if Aspen Ladd can pin her against the cage, because I think if she can get her against the cage, avoid the tie clinch, and then, try to take her down by locking her hands, I think we could be looking at a decent score at 8,900. I don't know if she goes out there and finishes Macy, because I know that Macy's so tough, but that ground and pound that Aspen Ladd possesses is amazing. I will be siding with Aspen Ladd ever so slightly. If it's on the feet, we could see Macy Chiasson light Aspen Ladd up like a Christmas tree. So I will be splitting some exposure, but leaning heavily towards Aspen Ladd.
Yeah, I lean her that way. But to me, if Macy's going to win this fight, it's her just keeping this fight range, using that reach advantage she does have in the matchup here. But because of those takedowns, I do like Aspen Ladd. I do want to mention a comment about TJ Dillashaw. Joseph said he only tested positive for EPO one time. They checked his urine test from every other fight and came back negative. EPO is detected via a blood test, FYI. He failed it for 2 times, his pre-fight and post-fight test. Now he has tested negative in 30 USADA drug tests since the first matchup, but the way they check EPO is via a blood test.
Yeah, it's a sneaky. Let me tell you, I've trained with some of the highest caliber out there, and not saying anybody that I train with, but I've been around some of the big camps, and there's some shady stuff that goes around. Especially, this is a dirty sport in a lot of areas, so it doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, you hear stories. I mean, look, Cody Garbrandt, he has been out there, and I saw Cody, retweeted a tweet today about it. Like, I almost feel like Cody's got a tweet saved in the drafts, ready to go if Sandhagen wins on Saturday night.
Oh, easily, absolutely. I mean, because you don't know, like, especially when you're teammates with somebody. And Garbrandt is one of the guys that was, basically the first to bring it to everybody's attention. And then like, what he's doing behind closed doors, that's, not being detected. It's shady, man. So I can only imagine if Dillashaw loses, how Garbrandt's going to feel.
Yeah, of course, as always, appreciate everyone that's tuned in here to the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Of course, be sure to subscribe to also right here on YouTube. If you have not already done that, hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Following us will be the MLB Deeper Dive with Greg and Adam to get you ready for tonight's MLB slate. And of course, we do have free premium data and tools today over awesemo.com. If you're not an Awesemo Plus member and you want to get a peek at what is behind the paywall, the MLB Top Stacks is today's free premium data and tools. So if you want to get a peek of what is behind the paywall, you can check that out right over there. Next up, let's move on to a bantamweight matchup. We got Kyler Phillips and Rolion Paiva. 9,200 here for Kyler Phillips, 7,000 here for Paiva. Let me get your take here. Is, do you want to pay up for Kyler Phillips in this situation? I mean, look, I think as a straight up play, he's the right side to play here. But in terms of DFS at 9,200, we're looking for a stoppage here.
Yeah, I think that he could get it though, because I do think that Kyler Phillips is so skilled in all facets of the game. I think that his striking is so unique. I think that he has solid grappling to back it up. I also think that Rolion Paiva is just going to be, not so talented in a bigger division. So I think that Rolion Paiva's skills may not translate completely to this division, but I do think that Rolion Paiva is a dangerous fighter. Kyler Phillips is a guy that I think at 9,200 can go out there and, have like a very, breakthrough performance. I just like it. It's a hefty price tag for sure, but I don't mind, honestly. Like sometimes skill wins out, and I just prefer to play skill rather than always staring at that salary. And I like what I'm seeing from Kyler Phillips, and I believe that he gets the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hefty price tag over on the FanDuel side of the equation at $22. The only fighter that is more expensive than him is Sajar Eubanks at $23, which is crazy number. Great. We're going to talk about that fight a little bit later on. Crazy number for a fighter that goes to decision more times than not.
Very true.
I saw that when I was putting together my spreadsheet, and I saw that number. I was like, "Ooh, that is one big number here." But to me, I think in terms of playing a side in this Phillips fight, Phillips definitely is a side that I would prefer to play on here. Next up, we've got a matchup that I'm actually surprised on the main card of Darren Elkins and Derek Minner here. Derek Minner 8,600, 7,600 for Darren Elkins. You just can't. I just don't want to play a guy that goes by the name The Damage.
I know, right? But Jason, I think that I do. I think that I do, honestly. And the reason behind it is like Derek Minner for me. I've been following him even when he was on the regional scene. He's very talented. He's explosive, but hunts submissions and is like a limited gas tank type of fighter where he goes all out really early in the fight. And if you can weather that storm or reverse some positions or put him in some bad positions, not that he breaks, but you really turn the tide and, you can get him out of there. And I think that a guy that's so durable in Darren Elkins, I think that's what we could see here, because Elkins has fought legitimate competition. You can go through his entire record and yes, he's been beaten up a lot and he has a lot of damage on his body, hence the nickname. But like he has some notable wins, man, and some awesome submissions and, some TKOs as well. I really like him. I think that he's going to be able to nullify some of Derek Minner's strengths. In Minner's previous performance where he was on top of Charles Rosa, that was really like a glimpse into Charles Rosa's, just welcoming jiu-jitsu game where he's comfortable off of his back and not too inclined to stand up or reverse positions or try to, implement his own takedowns and pressure. And I think a guy like Darren Elkins can actually reverse positions and basically beat Minner at his own game. Obviously, the submission skills of Minner can get Elkins out of there early, but I do think that Darren Elkins at 7,600 is a guy that I have no problem playing this week, to be honest.
I don't like the price tag on Derek Minner at 8,600.
I
mean, like, I'd rather spend $100 more and get the Jordan Williams, even though I do have some concerns about Jordan Williams' this matchup. Like, to me, like when I look at that, that 8,800 to 8,400, I just don't want to really get to a lot of Derek Minner here, even though, and we've talked about this, Jim, for several months now. Right now, you don't exactly want to bet against.
I know. Yeah, that's the number one thing, right? Like for me, that's the number one thing I'm worried about. Like the only reservation I really have in this matchup is Glory MMA and James Krause and Derek Minner, working close with that. And it's like, man, I know that James Krause can mold a lot of fighters, but let's also kind of like go backwards a little bit and remember how, blinded we were about the Kevin Kroom situation when he was able to go out there and put away Roosevelt Roberts, right? I believe that's who it was. And when he did that, we had blinders on thinking like, that Kevin Kroom could be the next big thing. But at the end of the day, a dog's a dog and a fighter has tendencies, and some fighters have tendencies that are very, very difficult to break no matter who the coach is. So I think that's something that, I'm not trying to overshadow the skill set in this matchup. I think that Elkins can push Minner in certain spots. So that's why I'm favoring Elkins in the matchup.
Interesting note about Glory MMA and Fitness. SBG guys out of Ireland have been making their way to Glory. James Gallagher is now there. Kiefer Crosby, who is fighting next week against Georgia Carhanian in Bellator, he is now there. I actually talked to Kiefer right before this show. So kind of an interesting note about Glory MMA and Fitness there. Some of the fighters that are coming in there. So something to note. It's just one of those things I hate to go against a Glory fighter, but yeah, it's I do understand where you're coming from there, but really tough also to trust Darren Elkins here. Now, I do want to let you know that we do have 2 new YouTube channels that you need to subscribe to. If you love what we do for DFS, then you're going to love what we're doing for season-long fantasy football and sports betting. Yes, football season is here, people. It is crazy. Training camp starting this weekend, and man, it feels like football season just ended, but fantasy football season is here. Just click the link pinned in the YouTube chat to subscribe to these channels and make sure to turn your notifications on too. We'll be producing sports betting and fantasy football content around the clock, so make sure to stay up to date from videos from your favorite Awesemo hosts. And if you want to check out some of the free content we are offering, you can find our fantasy football rankings in front of the paywall on the Awesemo.com fantasy football tab. And for sports betting, you can check out the Awesemo odds tab for access to Odd Shopper and for our MLB betting tools, which include our sports betting model and player props tool. By the way, I think it's crazy people are already doing fantasy football drafts. I do not do fantasy football drafts till literally about 3 or 4 days before the regular season starts.
I mean, I've been burned by injuries in the past. So like, I will be researching like crazy, especially on Awesemo, and then I will push my drafts a little bit later just to ensure that I don't get stuck with somebody who's injured for the rest of the year.
Could you imagine doing a fantasy draft the night Cam Akers
suffers
a torn Achilles, and if you didn't have your notifications on, you might have missed out on potentially a great opportunity.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like I think it happened to me one time. I said never again.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, Pete, at some point. We're taking our fantasy football teams here. Let's move on to, we got a female matchup, Miranda Maverick taking on Macy Barber. The most interesting note about Macy Barber, training at Team Alpha Male.
Yeah, and, I know that Team Alpha Male has really gotten, a bad rep over the years because it's been, producing some very inconsistent fighters. I do think that we're going to start to see a change in that. I do think that, Uriah Faber is a very smart guy, and I think that he has a stable of solid coaching staff there. I do think that is a good fit for Macy Barber, honestly. I mean, as a female mixed martial artist, it's important to surround yourself with, I think that training with the guys makes a ton of sense, especially lighter guys. And you have an entire gym filled with it, especially like strong grapplers. You have all skill sets at that gym. So I do like the switch for Macy Barber, but we have to be careful with this matchup because it's a case of recency bias and hype. Miranda Maverick is kind of like taking this recency bias because she has looked excellent in her previous fights. But Macy Barber, up until her last 2 drops, was like the next big thing for women's MMA. So let's also kind of put everything into perspective and see where they stack up. At the moment, Miranda Maverick holds the edge in terms of, I would say like rhythm, having, being victorious in her fights. feeling confident. Macy Barber coming off an injury and also just dropping a fight to Alexa Grasso. Like, she's having to overcome some adversity, but I think that she's fought slightly tougher competition. And I'm actually surprised to see Macy Barber kind of like everybody's like throwing her to the side. I'm going to pick Macy Barber, but it's very slightly, because I think that this is a matchup that should have been, taken care of years down the road. Pretty odd matchmaking. There's a couple odd, matchups on this card. The Macy Barber, Miranda Maverick, the Adrian Yanez, Randy Costa, just like a couple fights to me that don't really make a lot of sense as terms of longevity for these fighters in their careers. But I'm actually picking Macy Barber. And, when a lot of people zig, I tend to zag. And I feel like this could end up being like a pretty contrarian play.
I'm sure you have been reminded this week about Macy Barber in her last fight, right?
Yes. Yes, I have.
For people who do not know what we're talking about, it is all over MMA Twitter, her fight against Alexa Grasso, where literally she's shadowboxing. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it so much. I understand that there's like a massive gap in space between the two of them. But, you'll see like fighters, especially advanced strikers, do that every now and then. They'll show some half punches, some feints, and some fakes. You see Cal McCater do it, but then he follows it up by fake, and then steps in with a hard 3-2 or a hard jab cross. She kind of just, faked and punched the air and just stood there. So I think if she can kind of, mix in some different tricks over at, Team Alpha Male, I think that she's going to, be able to round out her game. I'm sure that they're working on takedowns and top control at, Team Alpha Male in order to try to possibly get Miranda Maverick on her back.
But look, I do agree with what you said there. This is odd matchmaking. You would think that with how the viewpoint of Macy Barber was not that long ago, that they would have maybe put her more in, hey, let's put her in a showcase fight, build her back up here. I do like being at Team Alpha Male. I do like that switch up here. I just hope that she's not going to become a fighter that we just see constantly changing gyms. And because typically that just doesn't work out well.
No, I mean, there's several fighters that have really, been like that throughout their careers, and it's not good. It's good to learn from a lot of people, but it's also like important to have a stable, trustworthy group of people that are kind of following you throughout. So, I love Miranda Maverick's skill set. So don't get it twisted that me siding with Macy Barber just slightly is just based on, I think, aggression and the possibility of landing in top control. I do think that, Miranda Maverick's debut in the UFC, just lasting one round and then having a solid performance against Jillian Robertson could somewhat be over, blowing her, her ceiling, so to speak, at this moment. And I'm okay with kind of going to the underdog in Macy Barber.
I will tell you, the next two fights are two fights on this card that I will prioritize for GPPs. First up, Adrian Yanez, Randy Costa. Both these guys have done a great job of promoting this matchup here, where Adrian, he loves himself some Dr. Pepper. It's always his go-to after the fight is over. Make sure he gets himself a Dr. Pepper. Randy, who loves Reese's Pieces, but also loves himself some head kicks. That's what Randy's known for. Randy is a guy that has only made it out of the first round one time in his career. Adrian Yanez, man, his striking is crisp. A lot of people are comparing him to a young Jorge Masvidal in terms of his striking abilities. Like, to me, this is a fight that I would be shocked it goes 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree. Shout out to Randy Costa, and my head coach, in addition to my father, is Greg Rebello, and he's flying out to Vegas, or in Vegas right now, cornering Randy Costa. So, I'm very familiar with Randy Costa and what he brings to the table. And on the outside, that he can pose a ton of problems to Adrian Yanez because of the kicks. And that's what makes him so dangerous within his division is, when a lot of people are looking to close the gap and get in tight for boxing and phone booth fighting, Costa's able to keep it on the outside, blend kicks behind his punches. And those blended kicks come at very sneaky angles that you don't see him. And you see it. He's trying to head kick everybody, and that's hence the nickname, the Zohan. So I think that this is a very interesting matchup, and this is another one where I don't really agree with the matchmakers. I understand that they want to do it because it's a fun fight, but in this game, your career can get derailed just from one bad performance, and I would hate to see either one of these guys get their careers derailed. I do think that Adrian Yanez reminds me like for me, he reminds me like Sergio Pettis of now. Like I think that he looks so talented, good striking, good technical defensive ability as well. And I think that he's going to really push Randy Costa, especially in the counter striking department. So I'm interested to see your take on the fight. I think you have to roster one of these guys. This is like a GPP must have. The two fights that I think are GPP must-haves are Minner Elkins and Yanez Costa. I think you have to have somebody in each of those fights. And I'm interested to see, who you're siding with in this fight.
First off, you got to put Allen and Soriano in that mix too. You have to.
That's a good one too. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I mean, look, I think that if Randy's going to win this fight, to me, it's going to come early. One of the things that when I had Adrian Yanez on my show, Leomana Martinez, get used to hearing that name. He was just signed by the UFC following his last fight. He got signed off. Dana White's looking for a fight series. He has been Yanez's main sparring partner for this one because Leomana is known for his head kick. So he's literally been seeing head kicks for the last 6 weeks. Every single day he's in the gym here. I think that I prefer the striking of Adrian Yanez in this situation. But look, I do like the fact of when you think of a kickboxer, the fact that Randy now living in South Florida, doing all of his training there at Stanford MMA under Henry Hoof. I think that was a great transition for him there. But to me, I'm going to have way more Adrian Yanez. But to me, in terms of punt play, I think Randy Costa is a good punt play just because if Randy is going to win, it's going to be my knockout.
Yeah. So, some more facts on it is that Yanez has fought tougher competition and that he's been, throughout, 15 minutes and even in championship rounds. So I think that the experience sides with Yanez. And I think that as the fight progresses, it's more of Yanez's fight. Early on, Yanez really has to be very, very careful. So this is more like a 60-40 for me. And I do think that Yanez walks away victorious. I will be rooting like crazy for Randy Costa. And I hope that he doesn't and catches Yanez. But to me, the skill set that I see out of Adrian Yanez is of a fighter that's possibly going to be contending for the belt one day.
Yeah, Samuel asking about exposure, saying it's a 50-50, 60-40. It's for me, it's 70-30, 70 Yanez, 30 Costa. That's
fair. And I can't hate on it at all. I think that, either way you go in this matchup, depending on the rest of your lineup, could end up shooting you up through the rankings.
Of course, this show is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. With Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Head to monkeyknifefight.com to check out all the player props they have over there. And when you sign up, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo, as Monkey Knife Fight has a instant first match deposit of up to $100 when you use that promo code Awesemo. And we always like to do is give you some plays in terms there. And two fights I'm going to profile here. First up, the fight we were just talking about, Adrian Yanez, Randy Costa. Very interesting number here, 48.5 for Yanez, 43.5 for Costa. I think this fight goes a little longer than 7.5 minutes. I think this kind of gets close to that third round. So I'm kind of thinking more on both of these guys.
I don't hate it. I will tell you that, Costa will probably throw 40 head kicks in the first round. So, you're probably going to be, close to your numbers right off the bat. And, I think it's going to be an excellent fight and they could have exchanges back and forth. And then as the fight progresses, like I said, it would definitely favor Yanez.
We need to get a little karate exhibition between you and Randy.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be fun. I haven't been able to spar with Costa, but he's working with my coach, so I'm obviously rooting for him.
Next up, main event, Corey Sandhagen, 78.5 total strikes. TJ Dillashaw, 57.5. On the Sandhagen, just because I think this fight is over within the first 3 rounds, I probably go less Sandhagen. The Dillashaw is a tough one. I might go less on Dillashaw as well.
Ooh, it comes down to how many shots can TJ take, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sandhagen can literally land one shot and walk away. or land a couple shots and it'd be over. I actually think I would hit the more on both of them, to be honest. They know each other pretty well. Yes, it is some years removed, but I think that we could be looking at a double more.
Yeah, of course, be sure to check out monkeyknifefight.com. Use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. And the one thing I always say about Monkey Knife Fight, you got to check it out earlier in the week, because sometimes you can find a little juicy number to where you can get beat up, get on a better number than you will get on fight night. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup. Punahele Soriano taking on Brandon Allen. This will be the favorite salary fight of the week for Pete. 8,200 for Soriano, 8,000 for Brandon Allen. Over on FanDuel, $15 for Soriano, $16 for Allen. Pete, this is an easy one for me to break down. Brandon Allen, don't stand, take him to the ground. You're Puna Soriano, stop the takedowns, make this a brawl.
Yeah, and I think that Puna Soriano has all the skills to get a victory here. And the reason I do is because he's a very solid striker, but also a sneaky wrestler. And I think that he can, stifle the offensive grappling of Brendan Allen and force him to stand with him or punish him on the ground. I think we could be looking at another finish. Obviously the elephant in the room is, how is Puna Soriano's gas tank over 3 rounds? Is he going to be able to last the entire time, have the same pop on his punches? Does he make mistakes when he's on the mat and starts to get ragdolled? Typical questions about fighters in adversity. But I will tell you that I think that Puna Soriano is possibly one of the hardest punchers within this division. And I don't really like how hittable Brendan Allen is. And, I understand that he's at a strong camp, but so is Puna Soriano. And for me, it's Puna Soriano. But this is a 70-30 split for me. I think that Puna can go in there and get a big score, or Brendan Allen's going to be able to implement his game, take him down, work towards a submission finish. But it's Soriano for me, and I feel pretty bold saying that.
And one of the things about Soriano, Extreme Couture is just on a tremendous roll right now. Yeah, like I said, I have the same concerns you have of what happens if this fight hits a second and third round, and Brandon Allen can make this a grueling grappling matchup. I mean, that's your concern if you are a Soriano backer, is that he gets taken down, potentially submitted. If you're an Allen backer, you're just hoping, man, shoot for takedowns. That should be the entire game plan here. But, to me, I think this is a critical fight in terms of when you're putting together your lines, because from a salary perspective, it's a great salary, 8,200, 8,000, 15 to 16. I think Soriano's a great play over on FanDuel, because he's likely going to have to stop some takedowns from Brandon Allen. So, I mean, to me, this is a fight that you have to prioritize on.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say that it's less about takedowns and it's more about just wearing on them in the clinch. And I think that some people get so wrapped up in the idea of just shoot. Well, when you do that, if the early on in the fight, your opponent's going to be very strong and going to have tight and strong defense. So if you're able to wear on them in the clinch, maybe dirty box with them and just kind of, hang your weight on them, you could zap them a little bit and then start to work in some takedowns, or then, start to really test their defensive ability. But, just to go out there and shoot right off the bat, I think Puna will, sprawl, spin around, and punish them with some ground and pound. So it's still Punahele Soriano for me. But if you have a take on Brendan Allen, I can't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, my whole take on Brandon Allen was just getting the fight to the ground there. Next up, we got Imavov versus Heinisch. Ian Heinisch, 8,500, 7,700 for Imavov. The storyline with Ian Heinisch heading into this one, he has been training down at Sanford MMA in South Florida. He was training in Colorado. I remember the last time I talked to him, so it was probably about a year ago at this point, where he was leaving Colorado and he was going to go to Thailand. And then all of a sudden I see him at Sanford. He's now bought a home in South Florida. So that is where he's at. I like Ian Heinisch in this matchup. I know we had a question over on Twitter that I do want to mention. It was from Hunter, says, he goes, I'm flipping like hell in the Imavov fight, would like each of our opinions know about Ian and his offensive wrestling enough to offset the technical striking disadvantage. I would say I really like Ian Heinisch in this matchup. I think this is a little bit of a showcase fight for him. And I do like I do like all the prop bets of Ian Heinisch to win by finish. You go inside the distance, which I want to say is plus 400. No, plus 275 was plus 400 to win by TKO KO.
Yeah, so I will say that this is an interesting matchup because Ian Heinisch coming off of, a disappointing loss to Kelvin Gastelum, but, he was just out grappled in that matchup where he's taken down repeatedly. And, he has some pop. And before that Gastelum fight, he knocked out Gerald Mearshart with a very nice shot. And, Nasruddin Imavov is a very, very talented guy. So this is another matchup that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because Heinisch has fought like legitimate UFC competition. Imavov's in his third UFC fight, has a win in his debut over Williams, and then just lost a fight to Phil Hawes. And in that fight against Phil Hawes, you did see that, at moments, Imavov struggles against pressure fighters. So I think that Heinisch can definitely pressure him, implement some takedowns, and, just be aggressive. He just has to be careful because Imavov is extremely dangerous and has so many skills to make this, a closer fight or possibly get a finish. So I will say that, be very, very careful because Imavov's skills are legit. His striking's legit, his accuracy is legit, and so are his submissions. But it's Ian Heinisch for me. Like, I mean, this is a card with a ton of favorites, in my opinion. Ian Heinisch, I think, goes in there, could press him against the cage, mix in some takedowns, shouldn't strike too long because the longer he strikes, the more that you're really inviting Imavov back into the fight.
Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. We'll get to your questions there at the end of the show. Now, I mentioned about, fighters that move around a lot, gyms, and, that's always not necessarily the best thing. One of those guys is Mickey Gall. We have seen this guy move around. And I think, unfortunately, the worst thing that happened to Mickey Gall is getting to the UFC in his second professional fight. It's just, you got to develop there. Now he's taking on Jordan Williams here. Jordan Williams, a favorite, 8,700 for Jordan, 7,500 for Mickey Gall. Of course, the note on this one is Jordan Williams going down to 170 pounds. He has a medical issue that, really could not cut weight. So that to me is tomorrow. I want to see what he looks like on the scale at 170 pounds. To me, if you're Mickey Gall, you got to get this fight to the ground, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that we're going to have to pay close attention to the weigh-ins because I think that it's going to be, could be detrimental to the card, honestly. Like Aspen Ladd struggled with her weight. We have Jordan Williams who could possibly struggle with his weight. You have Sajara Eubanks. So I think that we could, learn a lot about the weigh-ins tomorrow. So, pay close attention and tune into us on Saturday. But I will say that for me, it's Jordan Williams. And I know that he's reckless at times and he's, coming into the UFC on the Contender Series, didn't have a lot of success, but has fought legitimate competition and he does have skills. He's able to, exchange in slugfests. He's able to prevent some takedowns. And I think that, most people in the UFC in the 170 and 185 pound division can prevent Mickey Gall's takedowns because he doesn't have the best takedowns. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. And we speak of this all the time. If you don't really focus on your wrestling or your judo, you're going to have a very hard time to implement your jiu-jitsu or trying to get into advantageous submissions, spots. So I think it's Jordan Williams for me. It wouldn't surprise me if he went in there and knocked out Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall, his shot in this fight to me is weathering the storm and possibly capitalizing on a fatigued Jordan Williams late. Maybe he gets lazy and then he's able to work a submission, but that's more like a 10% play for me. I like Jordan Williams in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, and I will tell you, when you're looking to get a little bit of a leverage there in terms of ownership right now, liking what I'm seeing out of a potential leverage spot here for Jordan Williams at 8,700. Now, one of the biggest edges in sports betting is always finding the best line, and the best way to do that is go over to oddshopper.awesemo.com. Whether you want to make a wager on MMA, MLB, whatever it is, you got to shop the lines there where you're looking to find that edge. You got to check out oddshopper.awesemo.com, where we compile the best bets available for game line, player props, and player and team futures, all updated in real time. Even better, OddShopper now has an expected win percentage and return on investment, including for every MLB player prop bet available, which is derived straight from the Awesemo MLB player projection. So you can now find the best edge betting MLB player props. So head over to Awesemo.com DraftKings.oddshopper.com. You there, see it on the screen. You got to use that when you're looking to shop the odds to find out the best place to make your bet. Let's move on to the next matchup. We have got Julio Arce versus Andre Ewell. Julio Arce dropping down to bantamweight. It's been a couple years since he fought at bantamweight. But, Andre Ewell, obviously the length that he's going to have pretty much a majority of his bantamweight fights, a 5-inch reach advantage in this one. The one thing about him is 5 of his last 7 fights have gone to decision. Last time he won a fight by stoppage was back in CES MMA. But, look, if you're Andre Ewell, can you keep this thing in length? And if you're Julio Arce, once again, a guy, even though he has made 135 multiple times in the past on the regional scene, want to pay attention to see what it looks like on the scale tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. So like from a skill standpoint, and I've been talking about skills a lot, but sometimes the most skilled fighter doesn't always win out. From a skill standpoint, Julio Arce is the better fighter, in my opinion. I think he's the more well-rounded athlete. I think that he has the more, the crisper boxing as well, even though Andre Ewell is a pretty solid boxer within the UFC and is usually to be able to be on the outside and outpoint and pick apart his opponent. But I will say Julio Arce, former Golden Glove champ, tons of knockouts, some solid ground game as well. The one worry that I have, Jason, is if this weight cut is too much for him. And if people don't understand, when you cut a tremendous amount of weight or more than normal, and then you start to eat shots, you are more susceptible to get knocked out, especially if you have a terrible weight cut. So that's the one thing. We don't really look at Andre Ewell as a finisher, but if he catches Julio Arce, things could change. So I like Julio Arce a lot in this matchup, but I will definitely be including some Andre Ewell in about 10 to 20% of some lineups, just in case he's able to get a greasy decision or something like that, because it's a close back and forth striking affair, or if he's able to capitalize on a potential bad weight cut. But Julio Arce, skill standpoint, he's been coming off a layoff as well. He should be able to go out there and just kind of have a y'all must have forgot performance. And I think that he's so talented within the division, and especially at 135 pounds, can make a ton of noise.
Yeah, first fight since November of 2019 for Julio Arce. But yeah, he is one of those guys. I want to see what he looks like on the scale. But man, if you're going to take him in your DFS lineups over on DraftKings and on FanDuel, you got to pay up for him. $9,100 on DK, $20 over on FanDuel. I mean, it's an expensive price here, where I do kind of feel like there may be some better options there in those price ranges.
Yeah. So, I can see this fight going the distance, honestly. I could see this being like an 85 to 88 point performance from Julio Arce, and at that price range doesn't really come through for you. If he's able to implement some strong leg kicks against Andre Ewell, we've seen him struggle with that. And also if he's able to implement some takedowns, we've seen him, at times look like a fish out of water on the mat. So there is potential. I'm just somewhat, tempering expectations.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Next up, we got a female matchup, Eubanks versus Reed. Eubanks, $9,300 on DK, $23 over on FanDuel for Reed, $6,900 over on DK. She is $8 over on FanDuel. A couple of stats that you got to note when it comes to this fight. Sijara Eubanks, her last 8 fights have gone the distance. Her last stoppage win came in 2016 over in Invicta. And for Reed, she comes into the UFC as the CFFC strawweight champion. She made 2 title defenses. She's only 4-0 in her career. Yeah, she won the CFFC title in her second pro fight.
How does this fight make sense?
Here's my question. If we are managing Reed, well, I don't understand the rush here. Why not let her develop her skills a little bit more in the regional scene before you just get thrown into the UFC? That's my question with that one.
Not even that, but there's so many other fighters that you should debut against besides Sijara Eubanks. And I understand that 6-6 makes Sijara Eubanks look like she's not a good fighter, but she has a tremendous skill set where she is solid boxing, solid jiu-jitsu, solid wrestling, and she has some notable wins over some dangerous competition. And the fights that she's dropped is against some dangerous competition. And you have a girl who's 4-0, will want to keep this fight on the feet. If Sijara Eubanks takes her down, she could finish this within one round. And I can confidently say that, even though Sijara Eubanks does not finish fights. I'm telling you, man, this fight is like, if Sijara Eubanks loses a round to Elise Reed, then possibly the perception of Sijara Eubanks all along was incorrect. How did she do so well on The Ultimate Fighter? How did she get, talked of possibly fighting for the title one day? Like, if you are Sijara Eubanks, if you ask for this fight, one, your confidence is shot. And two, if the UFC is giving this to you, you must be like, wow, that is so disrespectful. I need to go out there and make a statement. Or you view it as, oh, thank you, UFC. I've been struggling. I need help out of my slump. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just such a nightmare of a matchup for Elise Reed. And I want her to do well. And if she can do well against some other competition, but debuting against Sijara Eubanks, to me, is just not a recipe for success.
It's an odd matchup. It's an extremely odd matchup to me when you're talking about this one. Like, it's when you look at the history of Sijara Eubanks, you hate to pay that $9,300 price, but I understand why people are going to get there. They're going to say, to me, this is a fight set up for Sijara Eubanks, but because of the history, I'm not going to X out this matchup, but I'm limiting my exposure on this one. I don't want to get to a ton in this one just because I'd rather get to, say, an Adrian Yanez, at 9,000, spend $300 less to get to that fighter, or a Corey Sandhagen at 8,800. I'd rather get to a Collar Phillips, $100 less at 9,200. But I understand why people would go to Sijara Eubanks. Now, of course, if you do want to get access to all the great premium tools and data we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This gives you full access to all the premium content and tools available at Awesemo.com, from player projections, ownership projections, and so much more, including our Slack channel. And if you're a new user of Awesemo Plus Platinum, then you can take advantage of the promo code we have for this show. Use the promo code MMA Strategy Show, one word, all caps. That's MMA Strategy Show for 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And of course, if you're only looking for an Awesemo MMA weekly pass, you can get that for $8.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus. Later on today, I'll be submitting in my pro plays. And of course, ownership projections and player projections are already up over Awesemo.com. So if you're already a member, you can check that out over at Awesemo.com. Now, our first fight of the night, I tell you, man, there has been a lot of chat about this matchup. I'm actually pretty surprised to see it, as we got Hannah Goldy, 8,300, taking on Diana Belbita, who is 7,900. By the way, I was listening to John Anik talk about it. It looks like Belbita. That's not how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
They said it's like pizza at the end. Belbita.
Belbita. I will say that,
like, back in the day, Mike Goldberg would be calling her Belbita all day long.
Oh, easy, of course. This is an extremely volatile matchup because it's sneaky. And I think that, a lot of people will look at low-level women's MMA and try to get an edge there. And I think that's how you can get an edge in DFS, especially MMA DFS. And I think that it's interesting, to target and to look at. Now, Belbita has not looked good in her fights thus far. Against Molly McCann, she did throw at a high clip of 98, landed 98 significant strikes, scored 48 in a loss. So that's a decent score against Molly McCann. And then ended up taking down Joe Jua and getting submitted relatively quickly on the mat. So I think that, when she throws, she has pop. And if you look at her record's a little suspect, and it's suspect because of strength of schedule. And she has a decent amount of finishes, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, bro.
Of course.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Of course. I mean, she has a decent amount of finishes, and, she's fighting in somewhat of mismatches. So, like, she has the more potential, I think, to score high in this matchup because she throws with reckless abandon. And I think that she's going to be the more aggressive, whereas Hannah Goldy's content with being on the outside, sticking and moving, hitting you from there, and not being there when you kind of, return fire. So she's more of a matador. Now, the problem with this fight is that I feel like Hannah Goldy's very, very strong and physical for the division, but with Belbita dropping down, how does that really, how does she really fare against Hannah Goldy in some of these grappling and clinch situations? I think you have to have exposure to Belbita, and I don't want to have exposure to either one of these, but this is such a volatile matchup. My thinking, though, is that Hannah Goldy is going to still be on her bicycle, staying on the outside and picking apart Belbita, not in the sense of like her dominating her by any means, but like, yeah, I guess she won that round because she threw 5 more kicks and wasn't there when Belbita was swinging at the air. That's my take on the fight. But if you look at Belbita and say, wow, she could possibly work towards 90 to 100 points because she's so aggressive and she has so many finishes, I don't hate it either. I'm going to split exposure on the first fight of the night and just close my eyes with that one.
This is low-level UFC women's strawweight action right here. You mentioned about that strength of schedule, so I'll just bring it up here. So after she lost to Ariane Lipsky in KSW in a title fight, these were the records of her opponents at the time of the matchup leading to her getting to the UFC. 0-2, 3-1, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-2.
If you really deep dive into a lot of people's records, you'll see that that's more of like a boxing approach. And sometimes it's a matter of people not wanting to fight you, but
you got 13 pro fights and you're fighting someone on a pro debut.
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. Like sometimes it's hard to find fights. Senior. Yeah. Right. Oh God. I will say that, for me, it's Hannah Goldy, and she could be the fighter that's not really getting talked about here. She throws a really heavy right hand in her Contender Series fight. She looked good against, Granger in her debut. She did not, but that was about 2 years ago. And if people don't know that, Granger's a decently skilled striker. So she has some accolades behind her. So that's why she was kind of walking down Hannah Goldy at times. But yeah, man, it's Hannah Goldy for me, but this is a nightmare of a matchup.
Yeah, with you there. Hannah Goldy, first fight since 2019 as well. So long layoff for her. See what she looks like here. Let's get into our straight up fight picks here. Let's start at the top. Give me Corey Sandhagen.
Sandhagen for me.
I will go Aspen Ladd.
Same, Aspen Ladd.
Kyler Phillips over Ravion Paiva.
Kyler Phillips.
I will Elkins Minner. Give me Derek Minner.
Whoa, I'm going Darren Elkins.
All right. Give me Miranda Maverick against Macy Barber.
Okay, I'm going Macy Barber.
I will take Adrian Yanez.
Adrian Yanez too.
Give me Puliana Soriano.
Same, Soriano.
I had a feeling we were kind of going to be on the same page for a lot of these. I will take Ian Heinisch. I will take Jordan Williams against Mickey Gall, but I do want to see what he looks like on the scale. That could change my pick.
Agree. Williams.
I will take Julio Arce against Andre Ewell.
Julio Arce for me as well.
Got to take Eubanks against Reed.
Eubanks, but be careful of the weigh-in. I mean, Elise could just literally dance around the outside, but I highly doubt it.
Goldy, Belbita.
Give me Goldy.
I'll go different than you. I don't feel good about it. Belbita. We'll get a little separation between the two. I do want to mention before we get out of here, the super chat that Samuel had a little earlier. His usual questions: top 2 cash, GPP, underdogs, MVP, favorite inside the distance, ownership, leverage plays, upset of the night, top fade, armbar from God, Jason Lafert fight. Much love, fellas. Yeah, I really do not want to touch the first fight. I just feel like, oh God, it's low level. It's just low level. The favorite leverage play for me in terms of ownership, I think you got to look at Jordan Williams.
So I'm interested to see what Sijara Eubanks ownership is going to be at. It's not a leverage position by any means.
No, it's not.
I think that, a leverage position could be the Darren Elkins fight. I think that could be a little interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at leverage for people who are not aware, I'm looking for fires that we're projecting for under 20%. Julio Arce could be another one of those fires. He's priced up, so people may kind of go away from him. That potentially could be a way for you to get an edge. I mean, look, you got to look at who's going to be that underdog that's going to pull off the upset of the night. Last week, it was Malcolm Gordon. I literally had 0 Malcolm Gordon. I didn't think, look, in terms of the fighter to potentially pull the upset, I might say Macy Chiasson. I don't think it's going to happen, But Aspinall coming off the knee injury, if Macy Chiasson can keep it on the feet, I do like Aspinall to win the fight, but maybe the upset of the week could be Macy Chiasson.
I don't hate it. I think it could be Macy Barber or Darren Elkins.
In terms of top 2 cash for me, the high end, I will go Adrian Yanez. And on the lower end, I would say Punahele Soriano.
Yeah, I like Soriano a lot. And I also think that Eubanks is probably a cash staple. I think that it's just a mismatch.
In terms of MVP champions, I really do like Soriano in the MVP role over on FanDuel, just because he's like going to have to stop some takedowns there. I will tell you this, other ones I think could be maybe a little sneaky play. Ian Heinisch could be a little sneaky play as a champion.
Interesting.
Top fade. I'll be fading the Elkins Minner fight. I just don't see me getting much of that. And I really, God, the Eubanks at 9,300. It's about the price point and her decision history.
I'll be fading Mickey Gall, but you can't really fade somebody that doesn't count. That's a cop out. But I think of the high priced fighters, maybe Derek Minner at 8,600, somebody that I'm okay with getting less of.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a GPP play, I think it's just like cash for me, Yanez and Soriano. But I think Jordan Williams is somebody definitely to look to, just because you're going to have a little bit of a leverage play there in terms of that. Anyone you got from armbar from guard?
Yeah, it's from guard, guys, not armbar from God. Okay, it's from guard. But armbar from guard will probably be between the first fight of the night, Belbita and Hannah Goldy. That just screams armbar from guard.
Yeah, I'm with you there, but that is going to do it for us. Coming up next is MLB Deeper Dive. Myself and Pee Wee back on Saturday for Live Before Lock, 3 p.m. each time to get you ready for UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. As always, appreciate everyone taking time to watch us live here on YouTube. As you exit the show, gives us a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe also right here on YouTube. So until Saturday, good day, everybody.